I think that's just the way we've been conditioned as a society, right? Our education systems just tells us to go from point A to point B, point B to point C, and you're just on the journey, right? You finish your schooling, you go to college, you finish your college, you go to your post graduation to a job, and once you're in a job, the rat race for promotions, it just never ends, right?
Hmm.
And at no point do you really question and say, what do I want? What am I trying to build in this life? What do I want to create? What do I want to leave behind? Am I leaving the world a better place than when I came in? We don't ever pause to ask these questions, and that's why self-awareness becomes critical. Otherwise, we are just leading life on autopilot from one thing to the next, like we're machine cut zombies, and we're moving to precision. We are functioning very well,
Hmm.
technology works, and all our conveniences are great, but where is life in it? Where
Right.
is our presence in it?
Right. You mentioned you were a banker and it didn't feel fulfilled. And I can completely relate to that. I quit my full-time job. Now I'm a podcaster, but I quit my full-time corporate job just over a year ago. And it just is what it is. It wasn't for me anymore. It was, and I mentioned this in another podcast. I had one of my therapists that I had at the time say to me, "You'll never heal in a corporate environment." And it's true. It drains you. So I felt the same way. I felt like I wasn't fulfilled. I felt like I had a message or I had something, but it wasn't there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a good caveat here to mention is that it's not that the corporate is good or bad, or,
Right.
entrepreneurship is the only way to do it. It's just that are we making intentional choices and are at peace with what choices we make, right? There are many perks with the corporate, and of course, healing can happen anywhere. I think that's my personal belief that as long as we are aware and we are conscious in terms of our choices and beliefs and attitudes, if we are making sure that that is aligned, we can heal wherever we are, right?
Hmm.
But I think it is about making those conscious choices and being at peace with it, right? So corporate definitely offers certain structure, stability to our lives. Those paychecks keep coming in on a regular basis. There is all
Right.
of those things, right? But I think what happens is that when, what you mentioned about sleepwalking, when we are not consciously choosing our environments, right?
Hmm.
Like you rightly said, maybe it didn't feel aligned to me, it didn't feel aligned to me as well. But I think it's about making that conscious choice. If you are consciously choosing to be with it, you'll find a way to work around it, right? You'll find a way to use that structure and stability to fuel your growth. And we have seen many people thrive in those environments as well. But is it aligned with who you are? Is it aligned with what you believe in? Is it aligned with what you value the most? When we start making these choices consciously, then that conflict or that dissonance doesn't really arise, or that friction, the way I
Hmm.
like to call it, right?
Hmm.
So you found more alignment when you were on your own and you could independently choose and actually convey the message that you're here to do, which is absolutely great. And I think what we also need to realize is that our lives can't be defined by a job description. I think
Yes.
in a corporatized world, a lot of times we've defined our identity and
Hmm.
our self-worth to what we do, and the role or the status or the jobs that we hold. But that's just a designation, it's just a
Hmm.
hat that we play. When we diminish ourselves to that, that's where I think it starts to become claustrophobic, because we are much bigger than that. And when we are not allowed room for expression beyond that job description, I think that's where the friction starts to arise and we feel
Right.
inadequate and dissatisfied to a large extent.
Hmm. And for me, when I'm looking back on, my adult years, I lived in fear. So I will tell you that a lot of my choices were out of fear. And so I guess if you want to call it a little bit of self-awareness, I mean, I was aware that I was in fear and that every choice I had to make was trying to get me out of that fear. That's when I think back on that, that's really what it felt like. And I was definitely in survival mode. I was absolutely in survival mode. So um, you know, it's so I'll tell you, it's so empowering being aware of yourself and being aware and realizing, oh, wait, I can make choices here. I may not see what the choices are right now, but I can research it and I can figure it out. The other way that I was living, where I was in complete survival mode, I felt so hopeless and helpless. And which then just stirred up the fear even more. So then if anything did actually happen, I was already so wound up that I would hit the ceiling. And so for me, the self-awareness has been really empowering.
Huh? And so beautifully put, right? I think one distinction that I always try to make is that, am I running away from something or am I running towards something? A lot of times when we make fear-based choices, what we're really doing is running away from something. And running away is always going to catch up to you because there's only
Mhm.
so much you can run, right?
Right.
Those things that are there hidden behind those closets within our minds will always come back and surface as many times as you run away, because you can't run away from your minds. That's the biggest challenge, right? All of
Yes.
us who are traveling the world to discover ourselves and, hope to forget our miseries, we forget that we're carrying it in our minds. And this is not something new. Seneca said this, I think, centuries ago, when he said that, you're traveling with your mind. So it doesn't matter where you go because you're carrying that madness with you, right? And that's the thing with us. So even when we are making those fear based decisions, we know that we've made those decisions out of fear. And it is a very primal need for humans to seek that security. I
Mhm.
think that's one of the reasons why I love delving into philosophy, because this is not a question, Lisa and Shweta are trying to figure out in the 21st century. This is a age-old battle humans have been trying to discover again and again and again because it's so fundamental to our very existence. We seek that security, and our minds cannot compute uncertainty because there are just so many unknown variables. And
Mhm.
we need to realize that we've given our mind the job of ensuring we survive. And to survive in an uncertain world is the most tricky thing. So
Yeah.
you can't blame your minds for going on an overdrive to protect you because there's just so many different ways in which we can be threatened. So, what helps me in that journey is to really try and make peace with the unknown, try and make peace with the uncertainty, realize that there is always going to be things that are beyond my control and it might not go in my favor all the time, right? That's why this journey of self awareness becomes all the more critical because you start building that resilience in you. I think I read this definition of meditation where it said that the biggest benefit meditation gives you is that you can remain happy independent of conditions around you,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And I
That's
found that
great.
so very profound because
Yes.
that is what we're seeking. If we are dependent on one condition or the other, saying that, okay, if I get that raise, if I get that promotion, if I have that six-figure business, we are always going to be miserable, right?
Mhm.
And the truth is that there is just so many external variables, luck, right time, right place, right opportunities. There are a million things. You can try all you want to control all the variables, but it is never going to be the same. So, really understanding how can you make peace with that fact that, okay, there are going to be unrealistic, I mean, unimaginable consequences to my actions. Can I be brave enough to face them?